Ba. Hello and welcome. It's me, Brandy Smith, live in the Forbidden Library / live from VR chat / in the field with some sheep, because I thought that maybe Maslinante, I think that's what we called my rocking horse. Maslinante needed a small break, so I thought we'd go into the field with some sheep, since we're about to see an epic battle between two sheep herders. Hello everyone! Hello Namaste Phantom, hello Maxa, hello Nimby, hello Boris, welcome. Thank you for reminding me to take emote only off. I'm in Wales, yeah! Hello, Xnam. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of taking emote off on Twitch. I forgot again. I'll get used to it eventually. Who knows? First, as you can see, the spreadsheet is out. I have some reading to report, good sirs and madams and they thems. And we need a formal they them. Witnesses. I think that's a pretty good formal they them. Good sirs, good madam, good witnesses. I have 3 things to report. Spreadsheets and data, and spreadsheets and data, and spreadsheets and data, da 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 da. I'm a little more than Princess Case. The 5th and what should have been the final book in this series, but the author was like, I have a few more ideas. And some fans of his were like, why don't you write more? And he was like, bet. And now there's another book out. By P.D. Ball. So I've done 2 audiobooks for this series. I thought I only had 3 more to do. Now I have 4, and I don't know if it's ever gonna end. Which is kind of fun, actually. Because it's been a fun series to voice for. The George R.R. Martin cuss. Yes, very much so. 2026. And then it's not another comic book. There is one comic book. I won't lie. There's one comic book I need to add to this. But I get to do things that somewhat get me paid. I am technically doing these audiobooks for free. I have royalty share on them, so if they get bought or listened to, then I get money. I don't get money immediately for doing the audiobook. So again, if you haven't picked them up, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Dread Excalibur, welcome. Oh, you're at Anime Expo! Oh, exciting! I hope you have a great time. Very jealous. Although, admittedly, I've heard the organization of that expo is absolutely terrible, so I hope you're still having a good time regardless. That's so cool. Red. Magical. Girl. Raising. Project. Volume. I don't remember. I think like 16 or some shit. I'm miles in. That much I can tell you. I'm on 70, yeah, so it was volume 16. I only have 2 more books of Magical Girl Raising Project and then I'm done with it. And I've read the whole thing. And did you know there's another series coming out soon and I can't wait? And I'm so excited. Who is this? Asari Endo, I believe, is who it's from. Yeah, sorry, Endo. And that's the reason I picked it up, because I heard about the new one. Raised any good magical girls yet? No, they're all pretty bad. I wanted to make sure you were still appreciated for all your reading. Or you watched the vlog. No. Very kind of you, Jonas Calvert. Go enjoy your life. Don't worry about little old me. I feel appreciated. Thank you. Go have a wonderful time. And this is series not complete. 2026. And last but not least, hello, Tib. I'm just gonna go Tib. I have no idea how I would pronounce that. So you're Tib now. Is the best thing in the world, obviously, the Sonic DC crossover. Call you TL? Cool, thank you. TL it is. Issue 3. Yeah. Eggman got one up on Lex Luthor and it was great. and well, they'd captured all the spoilers. I mean, I should let people read it, I guess. But how's Don Quixote going? It's tricky, but we're getting there. He's about to charge in head forth into a great battle, which happens to include a lot of sheep. Hence the sheep today. But we're just catching up on what things I have read. Many. I'm just gonna copy that. See, 2026. Okay, that is all. It was only 3, but I read things that weren't comics recently, so I wanted to put them on there. It was very important to me. You've been writing a story? Wonderful. What's your story about? I've just realized that your chat is right on my book Still Freedom. Probably should maybe put that down here or something instead. So that should be -3, which makes it 9,635 to go. Heck yeah. Now, for now, I was an idiot last week, and I didn't put a highlighter where I was, like a silly Billy. So, we're just gonna have to pick a bit and go, I guess. But that's okay. It's about an MC who dies on his way to college, but gets found by Father Time, who gives the MC a pocket watch to travel back in time to save humanity. Oh, it's a regressor! Goes through several points in human history. Oh, but like more less fantasy regressor and more fun times with. I bet you've had to do a lot of research for that one. That sounds like a lot of fun. Now, I believe we had a great speech. Right now he's in Mesopotamia. Wonderful. I believe, like, I remember Sancho asking, why do these kings hate each other? No, I got through that picture. This page. I know I did, because that page hurt me. There's nothing to separate it. It's just, here is my special interest. And that's okay, Don Quixote, but... So I must have probably just got through that. Most likely, knowing me. Good God, what a number of countries and nations he named, giving to each its proper attributes with marvellous readiness. Brimful and saturated with what he had read in his lying books, Sancho Panza hung upon his words, without speaking from time to time, turned to try if he could see the knights and giants his master was describing, and as he could not make out one of them, he said, Senor, devil take it if there's a sign of any man you talk of, knight or giant, in the old thing. Maybe it's old enchantment, like the phantoms last night. How canst thou say that? Answered Don Quixote. Dost thou not hear the neighing of the steeds, the baying of the trumpets, the roll of the drums? I hear nothing but great bleating of eels and sheep. said Sancho, which was true, for by this time the two flocks come close by. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have a history spanning story, you gotta have some big name characters in each bit, haven't you? It's important. Said Sancho, which was true, for by this time the two flocks had come close. The fear thou art in, Sancho, said Don Quixote, prevents thee from seeing or hearing correctly, for one of the effects of fear is to damage the senses and make things appear different from what they are. If thou art in such fear, withdraw to one side and leave me to myself, for alone I suffice to bring victory to that side to which I shall give my aid. And so, saying, he gave Rocinante the spur, and putting the lance in rest, shot down the slope like a thunderbolt. Sancho shouted after him, crying, "Come back, Señor Don Quixote! I vow to God they are sheep and ewes you are charging! Come back! Unlucky the father that begot me! What madness is this? Look, there is no giant, nor knights, nor cats, nor arms, nor shields quartered, or home, nor Venezier, or bedevilled. What are you about, sinner, that I am before God?" But not for all these entreaties did Don Quixote turn back. On the contrary, he went on shouting, "Ho, knights, ye who follow and fight under the banners of the valiant Emperor Pentapolin of the Bare Arm. Follow me, all ye shall see how easily I shall give him his revenge over his enemy, Alifanfaron of the Trapobara." So saying, he dashed into the midst of the squadron of ewes and began smearing them with as much spirit and intrepidity as if he were transfixing mortal enemies in earnest. The shepherds and droves accompanying the flock shouted to him to desist. Seeing it was no use, they ungirt their slings and began to salute his ears with stones as big as one's fist. Don Quixote gave no heed to the stones, but letting drive right and left, kept saying, "Where art thou, proud Alifanfaron? Come before me. I am a single knight who would fain prove thy prowess hand to hand, and make ye yield thy life a penalty for the wrong thou dost to the valiant Pentapolin Garamanta." Here came a sugar plum from the brook that struck him on the side, and buried a couple of ribs in his body. Feeling himself so smitten, he imagined himself slain or badly wounded for certain, and recollecting his liquor, he drew out his flask, and putting it to his lips, began to pour the contents into his stomach. Oh no. And now he's gonna do a lot of disgusting things. But ere had he succeeded in swallowing what seemed to him enough, there came another almond which struck him on the hand and the flask so fairly that it smashed into pieces, knocking 3 or 4 teeth and girders out of his mouth in its course, and sorely crushing 2 fingers of his hand. Such was the force of the first blow, and of the horse. The shepherds came up, and felt sure they had killed him. So in all haste they collected their flock together, took up the dead beasts, of which there were more than 7, and made off without waiting to ascertain anything further. Who knew? Is Don Quixote dead? All this time, Sancho stood on the hill watching the crazy feats of his master was performing, and tearing his beard and cursing the hour and the occasion when fortune had made him acquainted with him. Seeing him then brought to the ground, and that the shepherds had taken themselves off, He ran to him and found him in very bad case, though not unconscious, as he said, "Did I not tell you to come back, Senor Don Quixote? And that what you were doing, what you were going to attack when our armies bedroves the sheep? That's how that thief of a sage, my enemy, can alter and falsify things," answered Don Quixote. "Thou must know, Sancho, that it is a very easy matter for those of his sort to make us believe what they choose, and this malignant being who persecutes me, envious of the glory he knew I was to win in this battle, has turned the squadrons of the enemy into droves of sheep. At any rate, do this much, I beg of thee, Sancho, to undeceive thyself, and see that what I say is true. Mount thy ass, and follow them quickly, and thou shalt see what, when they have gone some little distance from this, they will return to their original shape, ceasing to be sheep, become men in all respects as I described them to thee at first. But go not just yet, for I want thy help and assistance. Come hither, and see how many of my teeth and grinders are missing, for I feel as if there was not one left in my mouth." Sancho came so close that he almost put his eyes in his mouth. Now, just at that moment, the balsam had acted on the stomach. Oh no! That's gross! On the stomach of Don Quixote, so at that very instant, when Sancho came to examine his mouth, he discharged all the contents with more force than a musket, and full into the beard of the compassionate squire. Sancho, why do you put up with this nonsense? Sancho, go home. Oh, lordy. Holy Mary! What is this that happened to me? Clearly this sinner is mortally wounded as he vomits blood from the mouth. But considering the matter a little more closely, he perceived by the colour, taste, and smell that it was not blood, but the balsam from the flask which he had seen him drink, and he was taken with such a loathing that his stomach turned, and he vomited up his inside over his very mouth. Gross, 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 gross. I didn't know the stream was gonna be so gross. Content alert. Puking. A lot of it. And both were left in a precarious state. Sancho ran to his ass to get something wherewithin to clean himself and relieve his master out of all his afajoras, but not finding them, he well nigh took leave of his senses, and cursed himself anew, and in his heart resolved to quit his master and return home, even though he forfeited the wages of his service and all hopes of the promised land. Don Quixote now rose, putting his left hand to his mouth to keep his teeth from falling out altogether. With the other hand he laid hold of the bridle of Rocinante, who had never stirred from his master's side, so loyal and well behaved he was, and betook himself to where the squire stood leaning over his ass, with his hand to his cheek, like one in deep dejection. Seeing him in this mood, looking so sad, Don Quixote said to him, "Bear in mind, Sancho, that one man is no more than another, unless he does more than another. All these temptresses that fall upon us are signs that fair weather is coming shortly, and that things will go well for us, for it is impossible for good or evil to last forever, and hence it follows that evil having lasted long, the good must be now nigh at hand, and thou must not distress thyself at the misfortunes which happened to me, since thou hast no share in them. Have I not? Replied Sancho. Was he whom they blanketed yesterday perchance any other than my father's son? And the forgers that are missing today, with all my treasures, did they not belong to any other but myself? What? Are the forgers missing, Sancho? Said Don Quixote. Yeah, they're missing, answered Sancho. In that case, we have nothing to eat today, replied Don Quixote. It would be so, replied Sancho, if it were none of the herbs your worship says, in those meadows, those with which knight-errant as lucky as your worship wont to supply such like shortcomings. For all that, answered Don Quixote, I would rather have, just now, a quarter of bread, or a loaf, and a couple of pilchards' heads, than all the herbs described by your Scorides. Oh my gosh, big words. I don't want to sign into Google. I thought I could be smart and just search it that way, but I don't want to. Fine, we're doing it this way. It's a guy. It's a Greek physician. Good to know. Even with Dr. Laguna's notes, nevertheless, Sancho the Good, mount thy beast and come along with me, for God, who provides all things, will not fail us, more especially when we are so active in his service as we are, since he fails not the midges of the air, nor the grubs of the earth, nor the tadpoles of the water, and is so merciful that he maketh his sun to rise on the good and on the evil, and sendeth rain on the unjust and on the just. Your worship would make a better preacher than a knight-errant, said Sancho. Knight-errant knew and ought to know everything, Sancho, said Don Quixote, for there were knight-errant in former times as well as qualified to deliver a sermon or discourse in the midday of an encampment, as if they had graduated the University of Paris, whereby we may see that the lance has never been blunted. Lance has never blunted the pen, nor the pen the lance. Well, be it as your worship says, replied Sancho. Let us be off now and find some place for shelter for the night. God grant it may be somewhere where there are no blankets, nor blanketeers, nor phantoms, nor enchanting moors. For if there are, may the devil take the whole concern. You can fill books with things knights don't know. For Don Quixote, it's all of them. Every book Don Quixote does not know, but he's so very, very, very good at bullshitting. Ask that of God, my son, replied Don Quixote, and do thou lead on where thou wilt, for this time I leave our lodging to thy choice. But reach me here thy hand, and feel thy finger, and find out how many of my teeth and grinders are missing from this right side of the upper jaw, for it is where I feel the pain. When the luck and charisma stats. I wouldn't say the luck stat is out, though. Maybe just the charisma. Charisma's all he's got. because he ain't bloody lucky either. Well, I suppose maybe Sancho's bad luck stat's just too high. Because he's the one who gets the shit. Sancho put his fingers and, feeling about, asked him, "How many grinders used your worship have on this side?" "4," replied Don Quixote, "besides the back tooth, all whole and quite sound." Charisma, but it's just being a rich old man. It's true. He is just kind of promising Sancho riches, and no one else really seems to believe him. At most, they, like, humour him, but for the most part, everyone doesn't want anything to do with it. "Mind what you're saying, senor?" "I say 4, if not 5, answered Don Quixote, "for never in my life have I had tooth or grinder drawn, nor has any fallen out, or been destroyed by any decay or rehum. "Well then," said Sancho, "in this lower side your worship has no more than 2 grinders and half, and this upper neither at half nor any at all, for it's as smooth as the palm of my hand." "Luckless that I am," said Don Quixote, hearing the sad news that his squire gave him. I had rather they despoiled me of an arm, so it were not the sword arm. For I tell thee, Sancho, a mouth without teeth is like a mill without a millstone, and a tooth is much more to be prioritized than a diamond. Don Quixote says dental hygiene is important. When was the last time you brushed your teeth, guys? Mine was this morning. But we who profess the austere order of chivalry are liable to all this. Mount, friend, and lead the way. I will follow thee at whatever pace thou wilt." Sancho did as he bade him, and proceeded in the direction in which he thought he might find refuge without quitting the high road, which was there very much frequented. As they went along then at a slow pace, for the pain in Don Quixote's jaw kept him uneasy and ill-disposed for speed. Sancho thought it well to amuse and divert him by talk of some kind, and among the things he said to him was that which will be told in the following chapter. Next time on Dragon Ball Don Quixote. Chapter 19? 19. Of the shrewd discourse which Sancho held with his master, and of the adventure that befell him with a dead body, together with other notable occurrences. I love these chapter titles, they're so good. It seems to me, senor, that all these mishaps that have befallen us of late have been without any doubt a punishment for the offence committed by your worship against the order of chivalry, in not keeping the oath you made by not to eat bread off a tablecloth or embrace the queen, and all the rest of it, that your worship swore to observe until you had taken that helmet of Marimando's or whatever the more is called, for I do not very well remember. Oh, Don Quixote is Mr. Satan, that much is for sure. He only believed... I take that back. Mr. Satan is only a joke in Dragon Ball because he is human. And he's not on the power scale, but he is actually a very strong person. He's just human. So Don Quixote is not even Mr. Satan, is what I'm saying. Thou art very right, Sancho, said Don Quixote, but to tell the truth, it may had escaped my memory, and likewise thou mayest rely upon it that the affair of the blanket happened to thee because of thy fault in not reminding me of it at the time. Fucking hell. You know, sir, you broke your own rules. Well, it's still your fault. Wow. But I will make amends, for there are ways of compounding for everything in the order of chivalry. Why? Have I taken an oath of some sort, then? It makes no matter if thou hast not taken an oath, said Don Quixote. Suffice it that I see thou art not quite clear of complacency, and whether or no, it will not be ill done to provide ourselves with a remedy. In that case, said Sancho, mind if your worship does not forget this as ye did the oath. Perhaps the phantoms may take it into their heads to amuse themselves once more with me, or even with your worship, if they see you so obstinate. While engaging with this and other talk, night took over them on the road, before they had reached or discovered any place of shelter. And what made it still worse was that they were dying of hunger. For with the loss of the fortress, they had lost their entire larder and commissariat, and to complete their misfortune, they met with an adventure which, without any intervention, had really the appearance of one. It so happened that the night closed in somewhat darkly, but for all that they pushed on, Sancho feeling sure that as the road was the king's highway, they might reasonably expect to find some inn within a league or two. Going along, then, in this way, the dark night, the squire hungry, the master sharp set, they saw coming towards them on the road they were travelling a great number of lights, which looked exactly like stars in motion. Sancho was taken aback at the sight of them, nor did Don Quixote altogether relish them. The one pulled up his ass by the halter, the other his hack by the bridle, and they stood still, watching anxiously to see what all this would turn out to be, and found the lights were approaching them, and nearer they came, the greater they seemed, at which spectacle Sancho began to shake like a man dosed with mercury, and Don Quixote's hair stood on end. He, however, plucking up the spirit, said, This, no doubt, Sancho, will be a most mighty and perilous adventure, in which we will be needful for me to put forth my valour and resolution. Unlucky me, answered Sancho. If this adventure happens to be one of your phantoms, as I am beginning to think it is, where shall I find the ribs to bear it? Pulling up your ass by the halter is a lot harder than it looks. Oh my. Be they phantoms ever so much, replied Don Quixote, for I will not permit them to touch a thread of thy garments. For if they played tricks with thee the time before, it was because I was unable to leap the walls of the yard. But now we are on a wide plain, where I shall be able to wield my sword as I please. They could be phantoms of a normal size. There's definitely a lot of them. There could be a lot of small size phantoms. And if they enchant and cripple you as they did last time, said Sancho, what difference will it make, being on the open plain or not? For all that, replied Don Quixote, I entreat thee, Sancho, to keep a good heart, for experience will tell thee what mine is. I will, please God, answered Sancho. And the two, retiring to one side of the road, set themselves to observe closely what all these moving lights might be. And very soon afterwards, they made out some 20 I need to Google this. So I googled it, and the Wikipedia thing came up on the side, and that's what I tend to read. But it's in Spanish. Espanol. Apparently it translates literally to jacketed. Some 20 encamasidos, all on horseback, with lighted torches in their hands. The awe-inspiring aspect of whom completely extinguished the courage of Sancho, who began to chatter with teeth like one in the cold fit of that. And his heart sank, and his teeth chattered still more when they perceived distinctly that behind them there came a litter covered with black, and followed by 6 more mounted figures in mourning down to the very feet of their mules. For they could perceive plainly they were not horses by the easy pace at which they went. And as the encamasidos came along, they muttered to themselves in a low, plaintive tone. The strange spectacle at such an hour, and in such a solitary place, was quite enough to strike terror into Sancho's heart, and even into his master's, and, save in Don Quixote's case, did so, for all Sancho's resolution had now broken down. It was just the opposite with his master, whose imagination immediately conjured up all this to him vividly as one of the adventures in his books. Of course, of course! Is there anything he's not going to see as an adventure in his books? One day, we're going to get to a page and he's going to see something clearly and we're going to be like, what the fuck? He took it into his head that the litter was a bier on which was borne some sorely wounded or slain knight, to avenge whom was a task reserved to him alone. And without any further reasoning, he laid his lance in rest, fixed himself firmly in his saddle, and with gallant sprint and bearing took up his position in the middle of the road, where the encamasidos must of necessity pass. And as soon as he saw them near at hand, he raised his voice and said, "Halt, knights, or whoever ye may be, and render me account of who ye are, whence ye came, where ye go. What is it ye carry upon that bier? For, to judge by appearances, either ye have done some wrong, or some wrong has been done to you. And it is fitting and necessary that we should know either that I may chastise you for the evil ye have done, or else that I may avenge you for the injury that has been inflicted upon you." "We are in haste," replied one of the encamasidos, "and the inn is far off, and we cannot stop to render you such an account as you demand." And spurring his mule, moved on. Don Quixote, mightily provoked by this answer, and seizing the mule by the bridle, said, "Halt, and be more mannerly, and render an account of what I have asked of you, even. Else take my defiance to combat all of you." The mule was shy, and so frightened that her bridle being seized, that rearing up, she flung her rider to the ground over her haunches. An attendant, who was on foot, seeing the encamasidos fall, began to abuse Don Quixote, who now moved to anger without any more ado, laying his lance in rest, charged one of the men in mourning, and brought him badly wounded to the ground. And as he wheeled round upon the others, the agility with which he attacked and routed them was a sight to see, for it seemed just as if wings had that instant grown upon Rocinante. So lightly and proudly did he bear himself. The Encamicidos were all timid folk and unarmed, so they speedily made their escape from the fray, and set off as a run across the plain, with their lighted torches, looking exactly like maskers running or on some gala or festival night. The mourners too, enveloped and swathed their skirts and gowns, and were enabled to bestir themselves. And so, with entire safety to himself, Don Quixote belaboured them all and drove them off against their will, for they all thought it was no man but a devil from hell who come to carry away the dead body they had in the litter. Sancho beheld himself in astonishment at the intrepidity of his lord, and said to himself, "Clearly this master of mine is as bold and as valiant as he says he is." Sancho, you're so dumb! Old man viciously attacks a group of people. A group of mourning people, by the sounds of it. They're transporting a body. Whence did ye come from? Hence did ye go? Whence did ye come from? Just del at a holiday, Cotton Eye Joe. Yes. I get the joke. I bad the Spanish. A burning torch lay on the ground near the first man, whom the mule had thrown, and the light of which Don Quixote perceived him, and coming up to him he presented the point of his lance to his face, calling him to yield himself prisoner, or else he would kill him. To which the prostrate man replied, "I am prisoner enough as it is. I cannot stir, for one of my legs is broken. I entreat you, if you be a Christian gentleman, not to kill me, which will be committing grave sacrilege, for I am licinate, and I hold first orders." "Then what devil brought you here, being a churchman?" said Don Quixote. "What, senor?" said the other. "Me bad luck." "Then still worse awaits you," said Don Quixote, "if you do not satisfy me as to all I asked you at first." "You shall soon be satisfied." I'm gonna have to get a pronunciation of this because I feel like I'm saying it wrong. That doesn't sound like a right. Licentiate is what Google said, but I don't know if that's right. But it's what we're going with. Said the licentiate. "You must know, then, that though just now I said I was a licentiate, I'm only a bachelor, and my name is Alonso Lopez, and I'm a native Alcobendas. I come from the city of Benza with 11 other priests, and the same who fled with the torches, and we are going to the city of Segovia, accompanying a dead body which is in that litter, and is that of a gentleman who died in Beza, where he was interred, and now, as I said, we're taking his bones to their burial place, which is in Segovia, where he was born." "And who killed him?" "God, by means of a malignant fever that took him," answered the bachelor. "In that case," said Don Quixote, "the Lord has relieved me of the task of avenging his death, and any other slain him. Had any other slain him, but he who slew him having slain him, there is nothing for it but for..." Oh lordy, this is 100% the hardest book. This is worse. This is harder than the The thingy. The thingy book. You know the thingy book? The thingy book that we read? Pompeii! This is harder than Pompeii to read. Anyway, where were we? The Lord has relieved me the task of avenging his death, had any other slain him. But he who slew him, having slain him, there is nothing for it but to be silent, and shrug one's shoulders. I should do the same, were he to slay myself. But I would have your reverence know that I am a knight of La Mancha, Don Quixote by name, and it is my business and calling to roam the world, righting wrongs and redressing injuries. The book with all the thingies. Yeah, the thingies. Don Quixote goes to Pompeii. Be quite the crossover. Does Don Quixote escape the volcano? Probably not. Does Don Quixote try to fight the volcano? Almost certainly. I do not know how... I do... He needs another voice, because I'm doing like a Sancho voice here, and I believe Alonso is like... a vaguely important character, if I remember correctly. I do not know... Let's make him an old man. That's a very good way of doing it, yes. I do not know how that about righting wrongs can be, said the bachelor, for from straight you have made me crooked, leaving me with a broken leg, for that will never see itself straight again, or the days of its life. And the injury you have addressed in my case had been to leave me injured in such a way that I shall remain injured forever. And the height of misadventure it was to fall in with you who go in search of adventures. Things do not happen in the same way. Things do not all happen in the same way, answered Don Quixote. It all came, Sir Bachelor Alonso Lopez, of your going as you did by night, dressed in those surplices, with lighted torches, praying, covered with mourning, so that naturally you looked like something evil, and of the other world, and so I could not avoid doing my duty in attacking you, and I should have attacked you even if I had known positively that you were the very devils of hell, for such I certainly believed and took you to be. What a victim blamer! Don Quixote's an ass. Don Quixote's more of an ass than Sancho's actual ass. What a victim blamer. You came out at night looking all funny, it's your fault. I had to attack you because you were dressed weird. You looked spooky, and I had to punch you in the face. I'm sorry. You looked spooky, so I broke your leg. He's not sorry, though. As my fate has so willed it, said the bachelor. Insert police joke here. Exactly. Welcome, by the way. I entreat you, Sir Knight-errant, whose errand has been such an evil one for me, to help me to get from under this mule that holds one of my legs caught between the stirrup and saddle. I would have talked on till tomorrow, said Don Quixote. How long were you going to wait before telling me of your distress? Hydrate, I will hydrate. Yeah. So, oh my god. Don Quixote. Is the fashion police. We have it on good authority that Don Quixote is, in fact, the fashion police. He had once called to Sancho, who, however, had no mind to come, as he was just then engaged in unloading sumpter mule, well laden with provender, which these worthy gentlemen had brought with them. I love how quick Sancho is to start looting. Oh, well, my lord's done something really cool. I'm gonna go take everything that it's worth for. I mean, he deserves it. I won't lie. He deserves some nice things. Sancho made a bag of his coat, and getting together as much as he could and as the bag would hold, he loaded his beast, and then hastened to obey his master's call. Sancho is an absolute OG loot goblin, correct. He helped him to remove the bachelor from under the mule, then putting him on her back, gave him the torch. And Don Quixote bade him follow the track of his companions, and beg pardon of them on his part for the wrong which he could not help doing. For the wrong he wants to apologise for, but would totally do again in the same situation. And Sancho said, "If by chance these gentlemen should want to know who was the hero that served them, so your worship may tell them that he was the famous Don Quixote of La Mancha, otherwise called the Knight of Rueful Countenance." The bachelor then took his departure. I forgot to mention that before he did so, he said to Don Quixote, "Remember that you stand excommunicated for having laid violent hands on a holy thing. Juxta Iliad sequis dente diablo." I'm sorry. So you know that meme, the Arthur meme of Arthur's little sister looking at the sign, say, "That doesn't matter to me, I can't read." This is exactly the energy Don Quixote's next line has. "I do not understand Latin." I am not excommunicated, I don't understand Latin. Answered Don Quixote, "But I know well I did not lay hands, only the spy." "It was not me, good sir, it was the gun." "Why don't you believe me, good sir, it was the gun." "I did not shoot you, the gun did. I did not harm you, it was the bullet." "Yes, I fired it, but..." Oh, this man just gets worse. "Besides, I did not think I was committing an assault upon priests or things of the church, which, like a Catholic and faithful Christian as I am, I respect and revere, but upon phantoms and spectres of the other world. But even so, I remember how it fared with Cid Dias, when he broke the chair of the ambassador of that king before his holiness the Pope, who excommunicated him for the same. And yet the good Roderick de Vivia bore himself that day a very noble and valiant knight. Guns kill people, people don't kill people." That's what Don Quixote thinks. It was his lance that laid hands upon him, not him. Therefore, he's still a good Christian. Good lord. 40. You see, the machine spirit in the gun was angered. That's why you got shot. A simple explanation, honestly. Upon hearing this, the bachelor took his departure, as had been said. Without making any reply, Don Quixote asked Sancho what had induced him to call him the Knight of Rueful Countenance more than any other time. "I will tell you," answered Sancho. "It was because I have been looking at you for some time, by the light of the torch held by that unfortunate, and verily your worship has got of late the most ill-favoured countenance I ever saw. It must be either owing to fatigue of this combat, or else to the want of teeth and grinders. It is not that, replied Don Quixote, but because the sage whose duty it will be to write the history of my achievements must have thought it proper that I should take some distinctive name, as all knights of yore did. One being he of the burning sword, another he of the unicorn, this one he of the damsels, that he of the phoenix, another the knight of the griffin, and another he of the death. And by these names and designations they were known to all the world round. And mind, just now call me Knight of the Rueful Countenance, as I intend to call myself from this day forward, and that the said name may fit me better. I mean, when the opportunity offers, to have a very rueful countenance painted on my shield. Sancho, you're a genius. There is no occasion, senor, for wasting time or money on making that countenance, said Sancho. For all that need to be done is for your worship to show your own face to face to those who look at you, and without anything more, either image or shield, they will call you him of the rueful countenance, and I believe I'm telling you the truth. Rueful countenance. Sancho, are you just calling Don Quixote ugly? Which, admittedly, yes, he does look like a spindly Enderman man. He looks like, not Enderman, sorry, a spindly Slenderman man, but still. You're just calling him ugly at this point. And I believe me telling the truth, I assure you, senor. And in good part, be it said, hunger and the loss of your grinders have given you such an ill-favoured face that, as I say, the rueful picture may be very well spared. So horsey face, yes. Don Quixote laughed at Sancho's pleasantry. Nevertheless, he resolved to call himself by that name, and have his shield or buckler painted as he had devised. Don Quixote would have looked to see whether the body in the litter were bones or not, but Sancho wouldn't have it, saying, Senor, you have ended this perilous adventure more safely for yourself than any of those I have seen. Perhaps these people, though beaten and routed, may bethink themselves that it is a single man that has beaten them, and feeling sore and ashamed of it, may take heart and come in search of us and give us trouble. The ass is in proper trim. The mountains are near at hand. Hunger presses. We have nothing more to do but to make good our retreat, and, as the saying is, the dead to the grave and the living to the loaf. Sir, put a bag over that face. Geez, you're trying to frighten the children or something. That is a mouthful. Sir mouthful. That could be taken in many ways. Oh, lordy. Let's not do that one. And driving his ass before him, he begged his master to follow, who, feeling that Sancho was right, did so without replying, and after proceeding some... Oh! Da-da-da-da! Thank you so much for subscribing! Appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the story. Story. Yeah, got distracted from it. Who, feeling after, without replying, and after proceeding some little distance between the two hills, they found themselves in a wide and retired valley, where they alighted, and Sancho unloaded his beast, and stretched upon the green grass. With hunger for sauce, they breakfasted, dined, lunched, and supped all at once, satisfying their appetites with more than one store of cold meat, which the dead man's clerical gentlemen, who seldom put themselves on short allowance, had brought with them on their sumpter mule. But another piece of ill luck befell them, which Sancho held the worst of all, and that was that they had no wine to drink, nor even water to moisten their lips. And as thirst tormented them, Sancho, observing that the meadow where they were was full of green and tender grass, said what will be told in the following chapter. Da da da! Another cliffhanger. In the chapter of 20. We're 16% of the way through, and it's only chapter 20 already. Of the unexampled and unheard of adventure which was achieved by the valiant Don Quixote of La Mancha, with less peril than any ever achieved by any famous knight in the world. I'm gonna go on a very quick BRB before we start this chapter. We do need to take a minute just to like mess around with the sheep at some point. You're very close to me, Sir Sheep. Very close. The "It Totally Happened, Bro" chapter. Yes. Well, I feel like this whole book has been "It Totally Happened." Problem is we kind of know. It cannot be, senor. But this grass is proof that there must be hard by some spring or brook to give it moisture. So it would be well to move a little farther on, and we may find some place where we may quench this terrible thirst that plagues us. which beyond a doubt is more distressing than younger. The sheep can hardly believe this. I know, right? They're so sad that their part of the story is already done. I mean, guys. I brought you on the stream because you had a big part in this book. But your part is done already. Indeed. Indeed. Now, what's Sancho's plan of attack here? The advice seemed good to Don Quixote, and he, leading Rocinante by the bridle, and Sancho the ass by the halter. Sancho the ass, correct! After he had packed away upon him the remains of the supper, they advanced to the meadow, feeling their way, for the darkness of the night made it impossible to see anything. The sheep just found out a lot got cut out in the editing. I know. This one, so Woolworths says the battle was epic. But they had not gone 200 paces when a loud noise of water, as if falling from great rocks, struck their ears. The sound cheered them greatly, but halting to make out by listening from what quarter it came, they heard unceasingly another noise which spoiled the satisfaction the sound of the water gave them, especially for Sancho, who was by nature timid and faint-hearted. They heard, I say, strokes falling with measured beat, and a certain rattling of iron and chains that, together with the furious din of water, would have struck terror into any heart but Don Quixote's. The night was, as has been said, dark, and they had happened to reach a spot in among some tall trees, whose leaves, stirred by gentle breeze, made a low, ominous sound, so that, what with the solitude, the place, the darkness, the noise of the water, and the rustling of the leaves, everything inspired awe and dread, more especially as they perceived that the strokes did not cease, nor the wind lull, nor the morning approach, to all which might be added their ignorance as to where they were. Spooky. But Don Quixote, supported by his intrepid heart, leapt on Rocinante, and bracing his buckler on his arm, brought his pike to the slope, and said, "Friend Sancho, I know that I, by heaven's will, have been born in this our iron age to retrieve in it the age of gold, or the golden, as it is called. I am here for whom perils, mighty achievements, and valiant deeds are reserved. I am, who say again, he who is retrieve of the knights of the Round Table, the 12 of France, and the 9 worthies, and he who is consigned to the oblivion, the paltries, the tablets, the oliviettes, the Trentes, the Fairbusses, and the Bellions. With the whole herd of famous knight-errants of days gone by, performing in those which I live such exploits, marvels, and feats of arms, as shall obscure their brightest deeds, thou dost mark well, faithful, trusty squire, the gloom of this might, its strange silence, the dull, confused murmur of those trees, the awful sound of that water in quest of which we came, that seems as though it were precipitating and dashing itself down from the lofty mountain of the moon, and that incessant hammering and wounds and pains our ears, which things all together and each of itself are enough to instil fear, dread, and dismay into the breast of Mars himself, much more into one not used to hazards and adventures of the kind. Well then, all this that I put before thee is incentive and stimulation to my spirit, making my heart burst in the bosom through eagerness to engage in this adventure, arduous as it promises to be. Therefore tighten Rocinante's girth a little, and God be with thee. Wait for me here 3 days and no more, and if in that time I do not come back, thou canst return to our village, and thence to do me a favour and a service. Wilt thou go to El Doboso, where thou shalt say to my incomparable lady Delicina that her captive knight hath died in attempting things that might make him worthy of being called hers. I think Don Quixote is the most purchased book in the world. I wouldn't be surprised. Most purchased book in the world. Best-selling books. According to Wikipedia, it's not. However, do you know the Little Prince is up there? The Little Prince is up there. Yay! Which is one of my favorites. With over 2 million. It's doesn't say though. It doesn't say what specifically it is. But that would be really fun. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it is up there. Because it's famous. It's very famous and very good. When Sancho heard his master's words, he began to weep in the most pathetic way, saying, "Oh, Senor, I know not why your worship wants to attempt this so dreadful adventure. It is night now. No one sees us here. We can easily turn about and take ourselves out of danger, even if we don't drink for 3 days to come. And as there is no one to see us, all the less will there be anyone to set us down as cowards. Besides, I have many a time heard the curate of our village, whom your worship knows well, preach that he who seeks danger perishes in it. So it is not right to tempt God by trying so tremendous a feat, from which there can be no escape save a miracle. And heaven has performed enough for them, for your worship, in delivering you from being blanketed as I was, and bringing you out victorious and safe and sound from among all those enemies that were with the dead man. And if all those does not move or soften the hard heart, let this thought and reflection move it, that you will have hardly quitted this spot, when from pure fear I shall yield my soul up to anyone that will take it. I left home and wife and children to come and serve your worship, trusting to do better and not worse. But as covetous burst the bag, it has rent my hopes asunder. For just as I had the highest about getting that wretched unlucky island your worship has so often promised me, I see that instead, in lieu of it, you mean to desert me now, in a place so far from human reach. For God's sake, master mine, deal not so unjustly by me. And if your worship will not entirely give up attempting this feat, at least put off till morning. For by what the law I learned, when I was a shepherd, tells me it cannot want 3 hours of dawn now, because the mouth of the horn is overheard, and makes midnight in the line of the left arm. How canst thou see, Sancho, said Don Quixote, where it makes that line, or where this mouth, or this occiput is that thou talkest of, when the night is so dark, and there is not a star to be seen in the whole heaven. That's true, said Sancho, but fear has sharp eyes, and sees things underground much more above in heavens besides. There is good reason to show that it now wants but little a day. Let it want what it may, replied Don Quixote. It shall not be said of me now or at any time that tears or entreaties turn me aside from doing what was in accordance with knightly usage. And so I beg of thee, Sancho, to hold thy peace, for God, who has put it into my heart to undertake now this so unexampled and terrible adventure, will take care to watch over my safety and console thy sorrow. What thou hast to do is to tighten Rocinante's girths well, and wait here, for I shall come back shortly, dead or alive. Sancho, perceiving it his master's final resolve, and how little his tears, counsels, and entreaties prevailed with him, determined to have recourse to his own ingenuity, and compel him, if he could, to wait till daylight. And so, while tightening the girth of the horse, he quietly, and without being felt with his ass halter, tied both Rocinante's legs, so that when Don Quixote strove to go, he was unable, as the horse could only move by jumps. Seeing the success of his trick, Sancho Panza said, See there, Signor, Heaven, moved by my tears and prayers, has so ordered it that Rocinante cannot stir, and if you will be so obstinate, hello, Tyler, welcome. Happy Sunday indeed. And spur and strike him, you will only provoke fortune and kick, as they say, against the pricks. Oh, don't worry, I don't take attendance. You can be late. This is fine. Thank you for coming anyway. Don Quixote, at this, grew desperate, but the more he drove his heels into the horse, the less he stirred him, and not having any suspicion of the tying, he was fain to resign himself, and wait till daybreak or until Rocinante could move. Indubitably. Did the Yanks have a good time with their Independence Day? Was there much fireworks and whatnot? And not having any suspicion of the tying, firmly persuaded that all this came of something other than Sancho's ingenuity. So he said, As it is so, Sancho, and as Rocinante cannot move, I am content to wait till dawn smiles upon us, even though I weep while it delays its coming. There will be a pub quiz at the end of the stream, and it will be 40% of our final mark. And the pub quiz is... What kind of policeman is Don Quixote? That is my quiz. Have you been paying attention? There's no need to weep, answered Sancho, for I will amuse your worship by telling the stories till daylight, unless, indeed, you like to dismount and lie down to sleep a little on the green grass after the fashion of knight-errant. LAPD, incorrect! You have not been paying attention. I stayed home with the cats and fiance played Whack-A-Warrior 5. So, absolutely fair. Apparently the heat wave's coming back for us next week, and I'm not looking forward to it. I will be, again, telling you how terribly the sun will be assaulting us next. Apparently not till Fridays when it gets the worst. And then Friday, Saturday. but other than that, we're kind of okay. Inspector Gadget? No! Nope, you haven't been paying attention. I'm disappointed in all of you. None of you remember what kind of policeman he is. Timu Judge Dredd? No! No! God! Not one of you are getting it. I will give you a little bit more time and then I'll remind you about what kind of fashion, or what kind of police he was. I nearly said it. And so, to be fresher when the day comes and the moment arrives for attempting this extraordinary adventure you are looking forward to. What art thou talking about? Dismounting or sleeping? Fashion! Yay! Fashion police! Fashion police! Yay! Remember, because he attacked them because of fashion. So he's the fashion police. Yay! We got it. We got it eventually. Kind of LAPD, I suppose? Are they fashion police? Said Don Quixote. I am, thinkest thou, one of those knights that take their rest in the presence of danger? Sleep thou, who art born to sleep, or do as thou wilt, for I will act as I think most consistent with my character. In fact, my designed character. Do not be angry, master mine, replied Sancho. I did not mean to say that. And coming close to him, he laid one hand upon the pommel of the saddle, and on the other the cantle, so that he held his master's left thigh in his embrace, not daring to separate a finger's width from him, so much afraid was he of the strokes which still resounded with regular beat. Don Quixote bade him tell some story to amuse him, as he had proposed, to which Sancho replied that he would, if his dread of what he heard would still let him. Still, said he, I'll strive to tell you a story of if I can manage to relate it, and nobody interferes with the telling, is the best of stories, and let your worship give me your attention, for ere I begin. What was, and may the good that is to come be for all, and the evil for him who goes to look for it. Your worship must know that the beginning of the old folk used to put to their tales was not just as each one pleased. It was a maximum of Cato Zonzorimo the Roman, that says the evil for him that goes to look for it. And it comes as pat to the purpose now as ring to the finger, to show that your worship should keep quiet and not go looking for evil in any quarter, and that we should go back by some road, since nobody forces us to follow this in which so many terror. Sancho, tell me a story. Okay. Once upon a time, we should go home. Don Quixote really be fit checking people to make sure the drip is on point. If the drip is not morally righteous, Don Quixote will attack. Go on with the story, Sancho, said Don Quixote, and leave the choice of our road to my care. I say then, continued Sancho, in the village of Estremadura, there was a goat shepherd, that is to say, one who tended goats. which shepherd, or goatherd as my story goes, was called Lope Ruiz. And this Lope Ruiz was in love with a shepherdess called Trolliver. Which shepherdess called Trolliver was the daughter of a rich grazer. And this rich grazer, if that is the way thou tellest thy tale, Sancho, replied Don Quixote, repeating twice all thou hast to say, thou wilt not have done these 2 days. Will not have done these 2 days, go straight on with it, and tell it like a reasonable man, or else say nothing. Tales are always told in me country in the very way I'm telling this, replied Sancho, and I cannot tell it in any other way, nor is it right of your worship to ask me to make new customs. If you don't like it, master, piss off. Tell it as thou wilt, replied Don Quixote, and as fate will have it, that I cannot help listening to thee. Go on. Would Don Quixote was made today, would he have a Sonic OT called Speedy? Yes. Yes, he would. And so, Lord of my soul, continued Sancho, as I've said, this shepherd was in love with Trolliver. I don't know, I just feel like I'm not saying this right. Google! Here, Google Translate. Tell me how to say this as a Spanish person. Torralva. It says rolling R's. Them rolling R's of the Spaniards, bro. Torralva. 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 Torralva the shepherdess, who was a wild buxom lass. It was a wild buxom lass with something of the look of a man about her, for she had little moustaches. I fancy I see her now. And then you knew her, said Don Quixote. I did not know her, said Sancho, but he who told me the story said it was so true and certain that when I told it to another I might safely declare and swear I'd seen it all myself. And so, in course of time, the devil who never sleeps and puts everything in confusion contrived that the love the shepherd bore to the shepherdess turned into hatred and ill will, and the reason, according to evil tongues, was some jealousy she caused him, that crossed the line and trespassed on forbidden ground. And so much did the shepherd hate her from that time forward, that in order to escape from her, he determined to quit the country and go where he should never set eyes on her again. Trolliver, when she found herself spurned by Lope, was immediately smitten with love for him, though she had never loved him before. But that is the natural way of women. Ah, women, gosh, said Don Quixote, to scorn the one that loves them, and love the one that hates them. Oh, they just like the bad boys. Oh my. Isn't this is familiar? Men haven't changed, clearly. Go on, Sancho. It came to pass, said Sancho, that the shepherd carried out his intention, and driving his goats before him, took his way across the plains of Estremadura to pass over to the kingdom of Portugal. Trolliver, who knew of it, went after him, and on foot and barefoot followed him at a distance, with a pilgrim's staff in her hand and a scrip round her neck, in which she carried, it is said, a bit of looking glass and a piece of comb, and some little pot or other of paint for her face. Nice squires finish last. Yep. But let her carry what she did. I am not going to trouble myself to prove it. All I say, that the shepherd, they say, came with his flock across the river Guadiana, which was at the time swollen and almost overflowing its banks. And at the spot he came there was neither ferry nor boat nor anyone to carry him or his flock over the other side, which he was very much vexed, for he perceived that Toralva was approaching, and would give him great annoyance with her tears and entreaties. However, he went looking about so closely that he discovered a fisherman who had alongside him a boat so small that he could only hold one person and one goat. But for all that he spoke to him and agreed him to carry himself safely and his 300 goats across, the fisherman got into the boat and carried one goat over. He came back carrying another goat over. He came back and again brought another over. Let your worship keep count of the goats the fisherman was taken across, for if one escapes the memory, there will be an end to the story, and it will be impossible to tell another word of it. To proceed, I must tell you the landing place on the other side was mirry and slippery, and the fisherman lost a great deal of time in going and coming. Still he returned for another goat, and another, and another. Take it for granted that he brought them across, said Don Quixote, and don't keep going and coming this way, or thou wilt not make an end bringing them over this 12-month. How many have gone across so far? How the devil do I know? There it is, said Sancho. What I told you, that you must keep good count. Well, by God, there is an end to this story, for there is no going any farther. How can that be? Said Don Quixote. Is it so essential to the story to know a nicety, the goats. Nice tea. The goats have crossed over, and if there be a mistake of one, the reckoning, thou canst go on with it. No, senor, not a bit, replied Sancho, for when I asked your worship to tell me how many goats crossed, and you answered you did not know at that very instant, all I had to say passed away out of my memory, and faith, there were so much virtue in it and entertainment. And so then, the story has come to an end. As much as me mother asks. What is that? So we came to the end of the book. Like my cat. What? In truth, said Don Quixote, thou hast told one of the rarest stories or histories that anyone in the world could have imagined. And such a way of telling it and ending it was never seen nor will be in a lifetime, though I expected nothing else from thy excellent understanding. But I do not wonder, for perhaps those ceaseless strokes may have confused thy wits. All that may be, replied Sancho, but I know that as to my story, all that can be said is that it ends where the mistake in the account or the passage of goats begins. Well, let it end where it will, well and good, said Don Quixote, and let us see if Rocinante can go. And again he spurred him, and again Rocinante made jumps and remained where he was, so well tied he was. Sancho, you're gonna have to get rid of them. I feel like the author is making fun of somebody's ability to take criticism. Probably. Don Quixote has been nothing if not incredibly meta and incredibly, like, There's a lot of personal jabs at a lot of stuff in this. Like, the irony we had of it taking a personal jab at not liking translated books because it feels like something's been lost in translation. And we are reading a translated book. Just then, whether it was an odd cold of the morning, whether it was the cold of the morning that was now approaching, or that he had eaten something laxative at supper, or that it was only natural, as is most likely, Sancho felt a desire to do what no one could do for him. He's gotta use the little squire's room. But so great was the fear that had penetrated his heart, he dare not separate himself from his master, and by as such as the black of his nail. To escape doing what he wanted was, however, so also impossible. So what he did, for peace's sake, was remove his right hand, which held the back of the saddle, and with it to untie gently and silently the running string which alone held up his breeches. So on loosing it, they fell down round his feet like fetters. He then raised his shirt as well as he could, and bared his hind Is he just gonna have a little bit of a... Okay, this is not what I expected. And bared his hind quarters, no slim ones, but this accomplished, which he fancied was all he had to do to get out of this terrible strait of embarrassment, another still greater difficulty presented itself, for it seemed impossible to relieve himself without making some noise. This is a very gross book. Picking up this book, I didn't expect gross. And he ground his teeth and squeezed his shoulders together, holding his breath as much as he could. But in spite of that precaution, he was unlucky enough, after all, to make a little noise, very different from which had been causing him so much fear. Don Quixote, hearing it, said, "What is that noise, Sancho?" "I don't know, senor," said he. "It must be something new, for adventures and misadventures never begin with a trifle." Once more he tried his luck, and succeeded so well that without any further noise or disturbance, he found himself relieved of the burden that had given him so much discomfort. Oh lordy. But as Don Quixote's sense of smell was as acute as his hearing, and as Sancho was so closely linked with him that the fumes rose almost in a straight line, it could not be but that some should reach his nose, and as soon as they did, he came to relief by compressing it between his fingers, saying in a rather stuffing tone, "Sancho, it strikes me that thou art in great fear." "I am," replied Sancho, "but how does your worship perceive it now more than ever?" "Because now thou smellest stronger than ever, and not of Ambergs," answered Don Quixote. "Very likely," said Sancho, "but that's not my fault, but your worships for leading me about at unreasonable hours in such unwanted places." "Then go back 3 or 4, my friend," said Don Quixote, all the time with his fingers on his nose, "and for the future pay more attention to thy person and to what thou owest to mine, for it is great familiarity with thee that has bred this contempt." "I'll bet," replied Sancho, "that your worship thinks I have done something I ought not with my person."
"It makes it worse to stir it, friend,"
returned Don Quixote. With this and other talk of the same sort, master and man passed the night, till Sancho perceived that daybreak was coming on apace. Very cautiously untied Rocinante, and tied up his breeches. As soon as Rocinante found himself free, though by nature he was not all meddlesome, he seemed to feel lively, and began pouring, as for to capering. Begging his pardon, he knew not what it meant. Don Quixote then, observing that Rocinante could move, took it as a good sign, and signalled that he should attempt the dread adventure. By this time day had fully broken, and everything showed distinctly, and Don Quixote saw that he was among some tall trees, chestnuts, which cast a very deep shade. He perceived likewise that the sound of the strokes did not cease, but could not discover what caused it. And so, without any further delay, he let Rocinante feel the spur, and once more taking leave of Sancho, he told him to wait for him for 3 days at most, and as he had said before, if he should not have returned by that time, he might feel sure it had been God's will that he should end his days in that perilous adventure. He again repeated the message and commission with which he was to go on his behalf to his lady Dulcinea, and said he was not to be uneasy as to the payment of his services, for before leaving home he had made his will, in which he would find himself recompensed in the matter of wages in due proportion to the time he had served. But if God delivered him safe, sound, and unhurt out of danger, he might look upon the promised island as much more than certain. Sancho began to weep afresh upon hearing the affecting words of his good master, and resolved to stay with him until the final issue at the end of the business. From the tears and his honourable resolve of Sancho Panza, the author of this history infers that he must have been of good birth, and at least an old Christian, and the feeling he displayed touched his, but not so much as to make him show any weakness. On the contrary, hiding what he felt as well as he could, he began to move towards the quarter whence the sound of water and the strokes seemed to come from. Sancho followed him on foot, leading by the halter as his custom was. His ass, his constant comrade in prosperity. I am sad that Sancho's ass does not have a name, and it deserves one. His constant comrade in prosperity and adversity had advancing some distance through the shady chestnut trees. They came upon a little meadow at the foot of some high rocks, down which a mighty rush of water flung itself. At the foot of the rocks were some rudely constructed houses, looking more like ruins than houses. I mean, you can chat if that's what you mean, send messages. If you mean self-promotion, no, you cannot. Chat must be somewhat relevant to stream. Them the rules, but feel free to chat within those rules. At the foot of the rocks were some rudely constructed houses, looking more like ruins, but hello, welcome. More like ruins than houses, from among which there came, they perceived, the din and clatter of blows, which still continued without intermission. Rocinante took fright at the noise of the water and the blows, but quietening him, Don Quixote advanced step by step towards the houses. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Commending himself with all his heart to his lady, imploring her support in that dread pass and enterprise, and on the way commending himself to God, not to forget him, Sancho, who never quitted his side, stretched his neck as far as he could and peered between the legs of Rocinante to see if he could now discover what it was that caused him such fear and apprehension. They went, it might be 100 paces further, then, turning on a corner, the true cause, beyond the possibility of any mistake, of that dread-sounding, and to them awe-inspiring noise that had kept them all night in such fear and perplexity, appeared plain and obvious, and it was, if, reader, thou art not disgusted and disappointed, 6 falling hammers, which by their alternate strokes made all din. What's a falling hammer? What's a falling hammer and what does it do? Also known as tucking or walking, is a step in wooden cloth making, which involves the cleansing of woven cloth to eliminate oils, dirt, and other impurities. It is a pre-industrial wool-making technique. When Don Quixote perceived what it was, he was struck dumb and rigid from head to foot. Sancho glanced at him and saw him with his head bent down upon his breast in manifest mortification, and Don Quixote glanced at Sancho and saw him with his cheeks puffed out and his mouth full of laughter, and evidently ready to explode with it. And in spite of his vexation, he could not help laughing at the sight of him. And when Sancho saw his master he let go so heartily that he had to hold his sides in both hands to keep himself from bursting with laughter. 4 times he stopped, as many times did his laughter break out afresh, with the same violence as the first, where Don Quixote grew furious above all when he heard him say mockingly, "Thou must know, friend Sancho, that of heaven's will I was born in this our iron age, to retrieve in it the golden, or age of gold. I am here for whom are reserved perils, mighty achievements, valiant deeds." And here he went on repeating the words that Don Quixote uttered the first time they heard the oar strokes. Don Quixote then, seeing that Sancho was turning him into ridicule, was so mortified and vexed that he lifted up his pike and smote him 2 such blows that if instead of catching them on his shoulders he caught them on his head, there would have been no wages to pay, unless indeed to his heirs. Sancho, seeing that he was getting an awkward return in earnest for his jest, and fearing his master might carry it still further, said to him very calm, "Calm yourself, sir. God forbid. By God, I am only joking." "Well then, if you are joking, I am not," replied Don Quixote. "Look here, my lively gentleman, if these, instead of being falling hammers, had been some perilous adventure, have I not, you think, shown the courage required for the attempt and achievement? I am, perchance, being as I am, a gentleman bound to know and distinguish sounds, and tell whether they come from fulling mills or not, and that, when perhaps is as is the case, I have never in my life seen any as you have, low boor as you are, that have been born and bred among them. But turn me these 6 hammers into 6 giants, and bring them to beard me, one by one or all together, and if I do not knock them over head over heels, then make what mockery you like of me. No more of that, signor." returned Sancho. I own I went a little far with the joke, but tell me, your worship, now that peace is made between us, and may God bring you out of all the adventures that may befall you as safe and as sound as he brought you out of this one, was it not a thing to laugh at? As is it not a good story? The great fear we were in, at least that I was in, for as to your worship, I see now that you neither know nor understand what either fear or dismay is. I do not deny, replied Don Quixote, that what happened to us may be worth laughing at, but it is not worth making a story about, for it is not everyone that is shrewd enough to hit the right point of a thing. They might still laugh at me and I don't like it. Can't take the heat, that don't stoke the fire, Don Quixote. Absolutely. Oh, I feel like we're near the end of the chapter. Oh, we're not far off. Let's go. At any rate, your worship knew how to hit the right point with your pike, aiming at my head and hitting me on the shoulders, thanks be to God and my own smartness in dodging it. But let that pass. All will come out in the scoring, for I have heard say he loves thee, well makes thee weep. And moreover, that it is the way with great lords, after any hard words they give a servant, to give him a pair of breeches, though I do not know what they give after blows, unless it be that knight-errants after blows give islands or kingdoms on the mainland. It may be of the dice, said Don Quixote, that all thou sayest will come true. Overlook the past, for thou art shrewd enough to know that our first movements are not in our own control. And one thing for the future bear in mind, that thou curb and restrain thy loquacity in my company. For in all the books of chivalry that I have read, and they are innumerable, I never met with a squire who talked so much to his lord as thou dost to thine. And in fact I feel it to be a great fault of thine and of mine, of thine that thou hast little respect for me, of mine that I do not make myself more respected. There was Galadin, the squire of Amadis of Gaul, that was count of the insular firm, and we read of him that he always addressed his lord with his cap in his hand, his head bowed down, and his body bent double, more trasquero. And then, what shall we say of Gaspar, the squire of Galore, who was so silent that, in order to indicate to us the greatness of his marvellous taciturnity, his name is only mentioned in the whole of that history, as long as it is truthful. For all I have said, thou wilt gather, Sancho, that there must be a difference between master and man, between lord and lackey, between knight and squire, so that from this day forward in our intercourse we must observe more respect and take less liberties, for in whatever way I may be provoked with you, it will be bad for the picture. The favours and benefits that I promised you will come in due time, and if they do not, your wages at least will not be lost, as I have already told you. All that your worship says is very true, said Sancho, but I should like to know, in case the time favours should not come, and it might be necessary to fall back upon wages, how much did the squire of a knight-errant get in those days, and did they agree by month or by day like bricklayers? I do not believe, replied Don Quixote, that such squires were ever on wages, but were dependent on favour, And if I have now mentioned thine in the sealed will I have left at home, it was with a view that what may happen, for as yet I know not how chivalry will turn out in these wretched times of ours, and I do not wish my soul to suffer for trifles in the world, for I would have thee know, Sancho, that in this there is no condition more hazardous than that of adventures. That is true, said Sancho, since the mere noise of the hammers of a fulling mill can disturb and disquiet the heart of such a valiant errant adventurer as your worship. But you may be sure I will not open my lips henceforth to make light of anything of your worships, but only to honour you as my master and natural lord. By doing so, replied Don Quixote, shalt thou live on in the face of the earth, for next to parents, masters are to be respected as though they are parents. What did we just read? So the two of them got spooked. Sancho took a dump right next to Don Quixote. What in the world? This is such a strange book, but it has been fun, and it is unfortunately the end of the stream. So, I would like to thank everyone for coming. I would like to thank everyone in chat. I would like to thank everyone who lurked, and I'd like to thank anyone who watches the VOD. I really appreciate coming, and hope you enjoy, no matter which way you decided to enjoy. If you have not already, I would highly appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, give a like and subscribe. And if you're on Twitch, give a cheeky follow. If you've done that, join the Discord. If you've done that, I have a TikTok. You can always look at the TikTok too. And if you've done all that, I already kind of shilled my audiobooks, so I'll just shill those again. If you enjoyed me reading, and you would... I'm sorry, Benjamin, it is in fact the end of the stream. Boo, boo. If you enjoyed me reading, and you would like to listen to me more, other than the 24-hour streaming, I have professionally recorded some audiobooks on Audible, so if you search Briny Road Smith on Audible, you will find 2 books, and there will be more coming. But that's my shill. I will be back tomorrow. We're going to be playing One Shot. But until then, I had fun. I do hope you had some fun. This has been Briny Road Smith, live from the Forbidden Library. Good luck with your battle against Linear Time, Benjamin. Goodbye.